There is a version of fame that looks like everything from the outside. The hit records, the sold-out shows, the screaming crowds. But for some artists, the moment they stepped to the microphone and opened their mouth to sing the song that made them famous, something inside them broke. Not a little, not quietly, completely. Welcome to Soul Lens. And tonight, we're going somewhere most music documentaries won't go. Behind the smile, behind the stage, into the stories of 10 Motown artists who built their legacies on songs that eventually became impossible to sing. Some of these stories involve loss so deep, it rewrote what a lyric meant. Some involve betrayal that turned a love song into a wound. And at least one involves a trauma so severe, the artist never performed the song again. Not once, for the rest of their life. We're counting down from 10, and I promise you, by the time we reach number 1, you will never hear these songs the same way again. Stay with us. Every entry gets heavier. Every story gets closer to the bone. And the song sitting at number 1 tonight, the one we're building toward, is the most haunting of all. Let's begin. Number 10, Four Tops, Berenson, Seven Keys, Stubbs, Payton, Duke Fakir. Levi Stubbs stood at that microphone for 40 years, delivering some of the most raw, desperate vocal performances in soul music history. That baritone didn't just sing, it bled. But ask anyone who knew the Four Tops personally, and there is one song they'll tell you about, one that hit different in the final years of Levi's life. A song that started as a declaration of undying devotion and became something far more painful as the decades passed and members began to slip away. That song was I Can't Help Myself, Sugar Pie Honey Bunch. Now on the surface, it sounds like a joyful, bouncy slice of Motown gold. And when the group cut it in 1965, it was exactly that. A celebration, a number 1 hit, a song that introduced the world to the Four Tops chemistry. But what that chemistry was built on, 4 men who had been friends since their teenage years in Detroit, who had promised each other they'd never replace a single member, no matter what. That was the true heart of that song. By the time Lawrence Payton died in 1997, followed by Ronaldo Benson in 2005, the bouncy declaration of loyalty became something altogether different when performed. Levi Stubbs, himself battling serious illness, would visibly struggle in later years when the song came on. Because the Sugar Pie Honey Bunch he was singing to was no longer just a girl. It was the memory of the men standing next to him who were no longer there. Duke Fakir, the last surviving original Four Top, has spoken in interviews about how the song now carries grief so thick he can feel it physically when it plays. 4 voices became 3, so then 2, then 1. And the song that was about being unable to help yourself from loving someone became about being unable to help yourself from missing the people you've loved and lost. That is number 10. And we haven't even warmed up yet. Number 9, Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On, 1973. This one is more complicated than it first appears, and that is exactly the point. When most people hear Let's Get It On, they hear seduction, warmth, one of the most sensual records ever laid down. And Marvin's vocal performance is nothing short of supernatural. The whispers, the breaks, the places where his voice just surrenders to something primal. It sounds effortless. It sounds free. It was neither. What the general public didn't know when the song was recorded was that Marvin Gaye had fallen deeply, dangerously in love with a 17-year-old girl named Janice Hunter, a woman whose age alone made the entire relationship complicated from the start. Ed Townsend, his co-writer, has described Marvin in the studio as emotionally torn apart. And because what he was singing wasn't just desire, it was desperation. A man who knew this situation was going to define him, consume him, possibly destroy him, and couldn't stop himself anyway. Marvin married Janice. It was turbulent from the first day. The marriage would eventually collapse in a way that left psychological wreckage on both sides. And in concert footage from his final touring years, you can watch something happen when Marvin moves into "Let's Get It On." The performance is still brilliant, but the ease is gone. There is something in his eyes during that song, a flicker of something unresolved that no other song in his catalog produced. He was singing the song that captured the beginning of one of the most consuming relationships of his life. He was singing it after the love had turned to wreckage. But he was singing it to crowds who had no idea what the smile was covering. Number 9, and we're just getting started.
If these stories are speaking to you, there is so much more where this came from. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Join the Soul Lens family and never miss a story like this again. Now back to the countdown.
Number 8, Diana Ross, "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." Solo version, 1970. This requires a little history, because the version most people know is not the original. And that distinction matters enormously. When Marvin Gaye and Tammi Terrell first recorded this song in 1967, it was a declaration of partnership, call and response, two voices making a promise to each other across the melody. And it was beautiful. Then Tammi Terrell collapsed in Marvin's arms on stage in 1967. Brain tumor. She would fight for nearly 4 years before dying in 1970, at just 24 years old. And Marvin Gaye would never fully recover from the loss, from the guilt, from the belief, which some accounts suggest he held privately, that there was more he should have done. When Diana Ross recorded her orchestral to sweeping solo version of "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" and turned it into a #1 hit, the irony was not lost on anyone in the Motown family. Because the song that had been born as a duet, a promise between two people that nothing would keep them from each other, had now become a solo performance. One voice where there were supposed to be two. Diana Ross has performed this song hundreds of times in her career. She has acknowledged in interviews that there is weight attached to it she cannot always explain to audiences, a sadness sitting beneath the triumph. Because somewhere in the production of that record, in the memory of Motown at that moment, is the ghost of a young woman who died too soon, and a musical partner who never forgave himself for surviving her. One voice, where there were meant to be two. Number 8. Number 7. Smokey Robinson, "The Tears of a Clown." 1970. There is a reason Smokey Robinson has spoken about this song with more complexity and discomfort than almost anything else in his catalog. And once you understand what was happening in his life when this record broke, you will never hear the metaphor the same way. Smokey Robinson wrote The Tears of a Clown with Stevie Wonder in 1966. It sat on an album largely unnoticed for 4 years. Then Motown released it as a single in the UK. It exploded. Then America. Then everywhere. Suddenly, Smokey Robinson had the biggest hit of his career. And that hit was a song about a man who laughs in public and weeps in private. A man whose smile is a performance. A man whose entire outer life is a lie, designed to protect people from the truth of his inner agony. And here is what makes this entry extraordinary. Smokey Robinson was, by nearly every account during this period, living inside the metaphor of that song in ways the public couldn't see. His marriage to Claudette Rogers was deteriorating under the weight of affairs, emotional withdrawal, and the quiet devastation of multiple miscarriages that Claudette had endured while Smokey was on the road. She had suffered losses she largely bore alone. He was on stage every night performing joy while his home life was fracturing. To stand at a microphone and sing, "I'm just like the sad, sad clown," when you know that you are the sad, sad clown, is a specific kind of psychological punishment most performers never have to endure. Smokey has said in later years that the song always makes him reflective. That is a gentle way of saying it cost him something to perform it. The man who wrote the metaphor became the metaphor. That is number 7. Number 6, The Supremes. Without a trace of Diana Ross. Florence, Ballard. You know the name. But you may not know the full weight of what I'm about to tell you. Before Diana Ross was the face of the Supremes, before the solo career, the movies, the decades of superstardom, there was Florence Ballard. Flo helped found the group. Her voice was raw, deep, magnificent. She was in many ways the emotional anchor of what the Supremes could have been. Ballard's voice. Her warm, low backing vocals anchor that track in ways that are impossible to separate from the sound. She is in the walls of that song. And she was removed from the Supremes while they went on to perform it for millions of people without her. Florence Ballard died in 1976. She was 32 years old. She died broke, ill, and largely forgotten by the machine that had used her and discarded her. She never reconciled with Diana Ross. She never reconciled with what happened. And every time that song played somewhere, it was a reminder of everything she had built and everything that had been taken. That is number 6. Number 5, Marvin Gaye Again, because there was no avoiding it. I heard it through the grapevine. 1968, the biggest-selling Motown single of the 1960s. Here is what makes this entry different from everything else on this list. This isn't about personal grief added to the song over time. This is about what Marvin Gaye said about the experience of performing the song itself. From the beginning. Marvin described the process of recording Grapevine as one of the most emotionally demanding sessions of his life. The song, about discovering your partner has been unfaithful through rumor and whisper, is sung not from a position of anger or strength, but from the inside of shock. That particular emotional place where you've just been told something your body refuses to believe. The place before rage, before grief, and the place where the floor disappears. Marvin Gaye was a man whose capacity for emotional performance was inseparable from his real interior life. By his final touring years, Marvin had begun rearranging and extending the song in ways that allowed him to process it differently each night. Some have suggested this was artistic. Others have suggested it was the only way he could get through it. Number 5. Let me go. Number 4. Gladys Knight, Neither One of Us, 1973. I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. Gladys Knight is one of the most technically and emotionally gifted vocalists in the history of American popular music. She has sung everything. She has survived everything. She does not break easily. Just won't let it die. Neither One of Us, whose full title is Neither One of Us Wants to Be the First to Say Goodbye, was Gladys Knight and the Pips' final release on Motown before moving to Buddha Records. It went to number 1. It won a Grammy. It is considered one of the definitive soul recordings of its era. What I'm gonna do without you. And Gladys Knight has said, in no uncertain terms across multiple interviews spanning decades, that she cannot sing this song without going to a place inside herself that she finds genuinely difficult to leave. And the song is about two people who both know a relationship is over, but neither can bring themselves to end it. The pain isn't about the ending. It's about the inability to begin the ending. And Gladys doesn't just perform that sentiment. She inhabits it so completely. Her phrasing, her breath control, the way she delays certain syllables as if she's physically reluctant to arrive at the word. That she has described the performance as an out-of-body experience. She has also said it takes her back to specific losses in her personal life with a precision that catches her off guard. That even after 50 years of performing it, it still does that. She controls it. She manages it. She delivers the performance every time. But afterward, she has to sit somewhere quiet. That is what this song costs her. Every time. Number 4. Number 3. Tammi Terrell, You're All I Need to Get By, with Marvin Gaye. 1968. I have to be careful with this one, because the pain embedded in this entry doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to everyone who was there. When Marvin Gaye and Tammi Terrell recorded this song, Tammi was already ill. The headaches had started. The collapses would follow. The tumor that was growing inside her brain had not yet been diagnosed, but something was wrong. And Tammi, who was performing in real physical pain during this period, sang through it. She sang through sessions where she couldn't always remember the lyrics she had just rehearsed. She sang through days when she arrived at the studio diminished by something none of them yet had a name for. You're All I Need to Get By is a love song about absolute dependency, about needing another person the way you need air. And the two voices on that recording, Tammy's, warm and brave and already beginning to fray at the edges, and Marvin's, enveloping her with something that was no longer just performance, were capturing something real. Marvin Gaye could not perform this song after Tammi died. He has said so directly. He recorded an album, I Want You, What's Going On, and retreated from live performance for years after her death. When he eventually returned to touring, You're All I Need to Get By was not a regular part of his set list. He occasionally attempted it. There is footage. Watch his face in that footage. Watch carefully. What you are seeing is a man singing with someone who is no longer there, singing a duet alone, and feeling every single note of what that means. Number 3. Number 2. The Four Tops, Berenson. Reach Out that became painful over time. This song was painful almost immediately after it was written, and the reason is something almost no directly ever has broken you, whatever darkness deliver that performance. Levi Stubbs was a man who carried the weight of others. People who knew him describe him as someone who instinctively took on the suffering around him, not performed it, but absorbed it. And when he stood in that studio and sang Reach Out, he was singing from a genuine, visceral place of wanting to be the person someone could call when everything collapsed. He meant every word. He felt every word. As the years passed and the Motown family began to suffer, deaths, mental illness, addiction, the wreckage that follows fame when the cameras go away, Levi Stubbs began performing Reach Out from inside a different kind of pain. Because the people who needed reaching for were sometimes people he couldn't reach. Sometimes the calls came too late. Sometimes there was nothing to be done. By the early 2000s, Levi Stubbs was performing Reach Out with a voice that had been weathered by time, illness, and accumulated loss. And when he delivered those final notes, when he stretched that number 2, and now, number 1. If you've made it this far, and I want to acknowledge that, because this has not been an easy journey, then you already know the kind of story that belongs at the top of this list. It has to be when Stevie Wonder were close, genuinely close. The kind of friendship that forms between young people inside the pressure of a system as consuming as Motown in the 1960s. They performed together on the Motown Revue, and they spent time together on the road. And Stevie, who has a capacity for emotional attunement that is almost supernatural, loved her. When Tammi died in March of 1970, Stevie Wonder had already been processing his grief before the official end. He had watched her deterioration. He had been there in ways that didn't make the newspapers. And in 1971, on his Where I'm Coming From album, he recorded I Never Dreamed You'd Leave in Summer. The song is ostensibly about a romantic loss. But many who know Stevie's life and work in this period have understood it as something else entirely. A farewell to Tammi. A grief song dressed in the language of a love song. The imagery of summer ending, of a presence suddenly absent when you had every reason to expect it to remain, is specific in a way that goes beyond romantic heartbreak. And it is the language of someone who looked up and the person was simply gone. Stevie Wonder has rarely performed this song in concert. When asked about it directly over the decades, his answers are careful and brief in a way that is itself revealing. This is a man who performs everything, who brings everything to his audience. The catalog is immense and generous and given freely. This song is not given freely. In the few concert performances where I Never Dreamed You'd Leave in Summer has appeared, the room changes. There is something in the way Stevie sits at the piano, in the angle of his head, in the way he seems to be singing not toward the crowd, but toward something past the crowd, that makes audiences fall quiet before they understand why. He is singing to someone who is not there, and he has been singing to someone who is not there for more than 50 years. And the reason this song sits at number 1, above every other entry on this list, above the breakups and the betrayals and the losses accumulated over decades of performing, is because it was never about performance at all. It was written in grief, recorded in grief, and every time it is performed in grief. There is no version of this song that does not cost him everything. That is number 1.